TopMedTalk.
Well, hello and welcome to TopMedTalk. I'm Desiree, Chappell, Managing Editor for TopMedTalk, and I am here at the Enhanced Recovery After Surgery Cardiac Society first virtual conference. It has been an exciting 2 days. This is the first conference that we have actually done outside of our own personal offices at home. And so very exciting to be out on the road. It's a small group here. We're all vaccinated. We're all using social distancing and masks and the whole bit. But I have to tell you, it feels really good to actually see another human and talk to them face to face. Just the collaboration that has come out over the last 48 hours is phenomenal. Shout out to my co-pilot, editor-in-chief of TopMedTalk, Monty Mythen, who is not going to be here with us this weekend. Obviously, he's stuck over in London, but he's not even joining us by Zoom. It is his birthday weekend. So happy birthday, Monty.
Happy birthday.
But I am very excited about our conversation today with some friends of the TopMedTalk family. Both have been on TopMedTalk before. Dan Engelman, who is the president of the Enhanced Recovery After Surgery Cardiac Society. Now, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We've had some great conversations over the last year, haven't we?
We have. Thank you for the invitation to speak. And I echo your opinion, how exciting it is to actually leave my house and travel somewhere. Though I have to tell you, I was a little nervous. I actually felt a little uncomfortable. It's hard to get back into society, and it's going to take a little bit of time, even though we're vaccinated and we're wearing N95s when we travel and everything else. But it is a strange time. But yes, thank you. I'm the president of the society, and I'm joined here by Dr. Seenu Reddy, who actually was one of the original members of our society. He can tell you a little more background about himself. I'm a cardiac surgeon. I specialize in perioperative care, and I have started trying to think out of the box and not just limit my thoughts to cardiac surgery. Seenu.
Well, welcome. Also, Dan, thank you for the kind invitation. Desiree, it's so great to be back on the TopMedTalk platform. It's such a great platform to spend some time on. I really got interested just through conversationally with Dan Engelman about enhanced recovery, just looking at ways on how we could really do something better for our patients. And just as he said, thinking outside the box instead of the box that all of us as surgeons and our colleagues in anesthesia and perioperative care and advanced practice personnel are always kind of put into a certain box on how to approach care. And this was really about maybe deconstructing that a little bit and then rebuilding it in a way that's so patient-centric and looking at ways that we can make their journey and their experience better.
You both are cardiac surgeons, and we're here for the Enhanced Recovery After Surgery virtual meeting. And it's not just for surgeons, right? So we all know a lot of us listening come from an enhanced recovery background. Tell us about this, because, two surgeons coming up with the idea to start this. How have you broadened the horizons, and what does it look like for you guys? What does this society look like?
So it all started in 2017, January of 2017, where we noted that there were these ERAS programs in every specialty, and we looked around the internet, and there was nothing for cardiac surgery. And we started looking at some of the guidelines, and we said, wow, a lot of this pertains to cardiac surgery, and we're not really doing this stuff. But we can't do it alone because we spend our times in the operating room. We're not doing a lot of the perioperative care. So we immediately went out and looked for some thought leaders in anesthesia and critical care medicine, and we broadened our reach, and kind of it all spun out from that idea.
I think that's exactly right. The idea from the beginning was to create a tent that was both broad and tall. We wanted to make this a society that welcomed many thought leaders, but also people from all components of the care of the cardiac patient, whether that's a registered dietitian, whether it's an advanced practice person, whether it's a PT and OT person with their background. All of those individuals, as Dan pointed out, they're part of the critical team that's necessary to guide a patient and their family's journey through what is most likely a fairly traumatic or major experience in their life.
It's been a little humbling, actually, when we got really into this, to realize that we'd been doing a disservice to our patients. We'd spent so much time at our national meetings discussing what we did in the operating room and not paying attention to the preoperative optimization or the postoperative journey for our patients. And I think that's changing. I think our national societies are appreciating the importance of optimizing patients and standardizing evidence-based best practice in the postoperative care, we become excellent at the technical aspects of the surgery with very little variation actually in the operating room. And yet post-operatively, we have this huge group of people taking care of our patients, advanced practitioners, intensivists, the surgeons get involved. They share the care of patients. Pharmacists are sometimes involved, sometimes not. The medications we use, the protocols we use, the when to remove tubes, lines, drains, the list goes on and on. It's not standardized. And there are best practice standards out there.
Dan, to hear you say that you're humbled by this, I mean, it's really hard for us as any type of provider who thinks we're doing a really great job to take that step back to say, you know what, maybe I'm not doing the best job, or we could do better. I want to dive into that, but thank you for saying that, because that's, I think, the first step.
Right? I think you hit the nail on the head right there, Desiree. It's not that we're saying we're doing a bad job, but it's really coming to it with the kind of Kaizen type approach, which is, what can we do better tomorrow than we did today? It's simply saying, is there small incremental changes we can make in all aspects of the care of the patient that then result in a much better end product? Yeah. And that's what we all strive to do. And it is humbling, but it's also exciting. Yeah. And what I particularly like about enhanced recovery is, Dan pointed out, there's some great protocols, there's some great evidence, but then there's also the opportunity to develop evidence and to learn from so many people around the world that may have discovered some little kernel of something that they're doing that is better than what's being done everywhere else.
And you know what I've also noted? So we're having our virtual meeting right now. It's a 2-day meeting. This is the second day. And everywhere I go, if I'm not participating, I'm listening to it. And it's a lot of open discussion. And I learned something nonstop, some pearl. And it's not something that's a randomized controlled trial, someone showing me a slide of something they published. That stuff is not what I'm learning. What I'm learning is the kernels, the little tidbits of operationalizing things that are best practice. So the question will be posed to a panel of experts is, how do we reduce opioids after surgery, or how do we mobilize our patients? And people come up with these really innovative, low-hanging fruit. There's zero cost to some of these things, like rounding with your pharmacist and having him remove from your MAR the opioids that are still on the medication administration record that haven't been utilized in the last 48 hours. Just get them off, because some evening, some nurse is going to hear the patient has pain and hand him a narcotic that he doesn't need. So these are just low-hanging fruit. Just get it off the list.
I think that's exactly right. That's the beauty of this conference, as Dan pointed out, is really the discussion component. It's the time when there's information exchange between really topic experts. And what I noticed is, yes, the evidence is there. We know, for example, that it makes sense to give nutrition or bolster nutrition in those patients that are malnourished. We don't need to recreate that wheel and do another randomized trial. But what you come away with when you attend this conference or attend that session is, just as Dan said, those little tips and tricks that oftentimes are missing in our big national meetings. You see these surgical presentations and their tour de force type operations, but then you leave the meeting and it's not something you can really recreate back at your center. And the goal of ERAS is, when you leave one of our meetings, you're going to be chock full of tips and tricks that you can take back and implement, if not the next day, then in the next week or next month.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that there's a huge need out there for protocols. Yeah. Everybody on our live chat is asking, they go, this is great stuff. Can you write it down? Can you give me something, a turnkey piece of paper I can bring back to my hospital and say, let's implement some of these steps? Not all of them, just some. Let's do this right now. We need it on a piece of paper written down.
But that's the beauty of ERAS, right? We are actually so open format, such a big tent, that we're not trying to hold on to anything. In fact, if you go to our website, many of these protocols are on there, and that's what we're about: dissemination of information and improvement of care.
But tell me about some of the other resources that you have with the ERAS Cardiac Society out there for providers.
Sure. So we learned a lot in this pandemic. One is that you don't actually need to travel the world to spread the word. And every one of our sessions has had an international member on it. And it was amazing to just join these people in real time over Zoom, and one in Singapore, one in South America, one in the UK, and then us here in Houston. And it's just seamless. And that's the future. That's what meetings are going to be like. They're going to be hybrid. There'll be some interaction, some live speakers, and then there are going to be people from all over the world joining and interacting. I'm 100% convinced that's where we're heading. I would say that the best part of our meeting is that we can we're open to all suggestions. Nobody's smarter than anyone else. We don't have egos. It doesn't matter what you've published. We just want to hear from not necessarily thought leaders, but innovators, people who understand the importance of standardizing best practice and have interesting ideas and are willing to share them.
So
Exactly.
in 2019, you all actually published, didn't you?
We did. That was our first kind of conclave and a period of time that we came together and said, let's start out with a core. Let's take some of the core aspects of what we're doing. Let's look at the evidence. Let's grade the evidence. Let's do it in a Delphi kind of fashion. We really spent a lot of time teasing these things out. And that turned out, as Dan has pointed out to me many times, one of the landmark publications for JAMA surgery.
Yeah, so that was surprising how much interest there was in that, because JAMA surgery caters to all surgical specialties, and yet in 2019 it was the most downloaded manuscript, which is the guidelines for perioperative care. And if you really read through them, we're not saying things that are outlandish.
There's nothing in there.
I mean, if you really, get down to brass tacks, we're saying, you know what? You probably should try not to give a lot of opioids. Yeah. You probably should get tubes, lines, and drains out early, extubate early, and follow your patients closely. Really, no kidding. I mean, that's what we wrote. And yet we looked at all the literature, we graded it, and we wrote it down. Nobody until then had really written down just a standard 21 steps of things you need to do. And it helped.
Yeah, the other great thing that people have pointed out to me about that manuscript is that, it's like a really nice menu at a fancy restaurant. There's a lot of great stuff there. You don't have to eat it all. I mean, you can pick and choose among which you can implement and which are easy to implement, and then continue to come back to it to try to add. And then again, like meetings like this. I do have to point out, ERAS is also a great opportunity to collaborate with thought leaders in industry. There's a lot of development and work that goes on among industry that bring innovation to the marketplace. And then it's societies like ours and some creative people out there who can then transform that into really helping patients.
Yeah, it's a huge educational resource, really. You said that people ask for protocols all the time. One thing that I loved about the guidelines, one, it stuck to the core principle of ERAS, because if you were not looking at that through the lens of cardiac, I mean, those are general, enhanced recovery principles. So I love that, because it shows once again that if we kind of standardize and do the same things for all of our patients, we can, translate this into many different things. And so I love that, being not specifically from cardiac.
Yeah. So, and I have to give a shout out to the father of modern ERAS, which basically came from Sweden. Now it's Ali Lindquist has taken over, and he really, set us up with that and told us how to write those guidelines, gave us some thought leaders. And he's the one who really framed it for us. And he was been a tremendous help with us, and really made it so that what we wrote wasn't going to be, I would say, disruptive on the first level. It had to be basic. Yeah.
Which I think it was disruptive just in the world that cardiac comes out and says, hey, we're going to do this too. So that was great. But I do think it is a great piece that I actually refer people a lot to when they say, oh, I want a protocol. Well, look at these guidelines, because you're going to have to write a protocol that works for your place. You can take copy and paste a lot of it, but there'll be some couple little nuances that you need, but there are some core things that you just need to include in everyone. And I think you guys did a good job about that.
You're so right, Desiree. I think that's so important for people listening, is understanding that although these are fairly transportable guidelines that as they apply to each and every one of people's institutions or hospitals or locations, there may be individual challenges or barriers, but that's the challenge for all of us.
So since that time, there have been more disruptive papers written about specific pieces of it in AKI prevention, in regional anesthesia, specific to cardiac surgery. And there are a bunch of really, good thought leaders writing in cardiac surgery. And I think there'll be a lot more papers.
Oh, yeah, especially on prehab and post-hab.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's going to be
so
really
there's a lot more out there coming.
So just to wrap it up here, guys, thank you again for the invitation for TopMedTalk to join you here, because again, I think all of us come from the same vein. Like, it's important we get this education out there to the masses. That's how we're going to make change. That's how we change culture. Where do you all see this going?
Well, I think number one is I've been just really stunned by the growth and the acceptance and the dissemination has been fantastic. As Dan pointed out, our societies have embraced it, meaning the major cardiothoracic surgical societies. Where I see this going is kind of what's happened in my own institution, that ERAS becomes an opt-out, not an opt-in. So at a lot of places, you have to kind of formally put ERAS in place. I think now what the status is that if you're not doing it, then you're not really doing the state-of-the-art care. And if you're somebody who wants to not do ERAS, you have to actually opt out of it.
Yeah, I echo that completely. I mean, it was back, 10 years ago that off-pump surgery was the thing. And then it became minimally invasive cardiac surgery was the thing. And I would propose that now ERAS is the thing. It's the next frontier that is going to be the standard, not just for the fast track healthy patient, but for every single patient.
Absolutely.
And I think that also your platform is going to be key. We need to have more of these podcasts. We need short little vignettes, 8 to 15 minutes that people can listen to in the car on the way home, where they learn and hear the thought leaders having interactive discussions and get ideas. And that's the future really of education. It's not sitting in these major meetings at international locations and watching these double-blind randomized controlled trials with p-values. That's not how we're going to learn.
Yeah, I think the future is bright, and I think the future is going to be about change and optimization to help patients.
Yeah, I love it. Gentlemen, I just want to thank you so much. I know you need to get going on a bus to get over to the next session. I, again, can't tell you how much we really appreciate you bringing TopMedTalk into your tent, and really excited to have you guys
We
in
think
ours.
it's a tremendous collaboration. We think EBPOM, TopMedTalk, and ERAS Cardiac are really just 3 pillars, and we look forward to future collaboration.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
All right,
Desiree.
gentlemen, have a great day. Cheers.
Great to be with you.
TopMedTalk. Thanks for downloading TopMedTalk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, don't forget, TopMedTalk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, evidence-based perioperative medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.